Welcome to Breaking Bread. It is July 25th, 2025, and we are talking today about how our thinking influences our embodied states and our dancing, our moving. And I've been thinking about this because I found myself on tour talking about this more than once. And it seems an important subject for dancers to recognize. There's so many ways that we, as mind bodies, and the key word is mind body, as one whole, as an understanding of something that arises in time. That when we do not distinguish mind from body, we recognize the influence of what happens in mind, meaning everything we perceive, everything we make of what we perceive. And mind being not only neurological and brain-based, but also mind being that which is other forms of cognition that do not result in neurology and cognitive thinking as we are accustomed to thinking of thinking. So, for instance, the kind of thinking that is done by our fascia, I call that a thinking, because I'd like to think of what fascia does when something, when there is a tensegrity and within our physical form and our actions, and something happens in one part of our body that in the same moment informs another part of our body, and it's not happening neurologically. It's not working through my brain-based neurology, making those connections, but body makes the connection. Things happen when I'm dancing that are far, far, far too fast. And so I'm very often very interested in what I call peripheral intelligence, which is based in that kind of cognition, that kind of non-neurological knowing. So when we have this ability, when we have this recognition that the mind is always a body and the body is always a mind, then we're not surprised that action in one department changes action in the other department. When we're thinking in these polar ways, a mere thought, is a physical form immediately. And we can, see the immediacy of that when I speak of the say the top of your head, and I ask you, what does the top of your head know about the ceiling? And you realize the top of your head knows a lot about that ceiling. If you were to walk outside, the top of your head would totally change. And if you wanted to know about it, it's immediately available to you. There's no having to arrive there in the sense as dancers. And maybe that's one of the things we do as dancers, is that we train in that immediacy of an available physical form. Maybe in the same way that school trains us in the immediacy of numeric thinking, right? They both have a similar kind of immediacy. And dancing, we work on the different kinds of cognition and our awareness of them. If we think of the mind and the body as this Mobius, and you've heard me say this before, I think of the mind-body as a continuum. So even though one of my lead professors hated the terminology I'd use when I say that the body has mindishness and the mind has bodyishness, she just would hate that. But that's kind of the way I think of those in-between places where if I were to say, you know, what's it like to go dancing on this the surface of the sun, and you immediately go, but the sun doesn't have a surface, or I can't do that, I'm burning up, right? Or you go, okay, I'll be a being that can do that, and that can find some kind of a surface that is so percolating that I'm in constant motion. I can't stop. There's, and that is, and if I were to ask you what it feels like, you would tell me. And that physicality that we can bring to thinking is like super fun and important, because whereas that example was kind of silly, there's many places where when we think physically, we allow ourselves to step into relations. Whereas if we're simply thinking conceptually and not taking the physicality with us, then we talk at rather than as. That's a whole other subject. Today, I'd really like to venture into not the immediacy of being a mind that is a body, but to the what thinking does to our physicality and our ability to move. Well, our ability to move really well, our ability to ask of our bodies that they inform us in ways we otherwise wouldn't. If we conceptualize and understand a human being as skin flesh bound, we might not recognize forms of touch that we always do, or we possibly can do. And if we don't recognize it, we don't have access to it. Just like if you didn't have, if you were, you know, it's easy to get to the top of your head if you're already there. But if you have reduced yourself to just being eyes because you spend your whole life on a computer and because your training in school forced you to be visual and demote your kinesthetic capacities so that you wouldn't be relational when you're in school, because we know being relational in school is a problem. You've got to be a single body in school. So to force you to function as a single being, they force you into your eyes. uh, um, so being single beings and being eyes, the top of our head may not be easily and immediately accessible. Whereas if you're already living as a physical form, in other words, you're alive and vital throughout your whole physical being. Now the possibility for the top of your head to tell you what's happening, and it will, if you let it, if you are interested. You know, the relations aren't just between us and the environment that we're living, or between us and the people that are around us, or the objects and beings that are around us, trees, plants, stones, minerals, objects. The relations also happen from the flesh inwardly. And those relations are really important. I mean, we're relations all the way down and all the way up. You can't do anything that you are not functioning in relations, right? There's nothing you can do. Bend your head towards your knee or towards the floor, and your own physical form is in relations with itself. And those relations are just as important to recognize, of course. We know this as movers, as the relations from our flesh form outwardly. And that is to say that we are multiple beings. There is no single you here, which is kind of a wonderfully interesting thing to wrap your head around as an experience. Experiencing selfhood as multiple is a really marvelous experience, a way to live. And if I experience myself as multiple, I really behave differently than if I experience myself as singular, as only a one. I do experience myself as a singular and also as multiple, never only one. Do you, I wonder, do you also have that experience? So when I say I experience myself as multiple, I'm speaking on a logical level that speaks to my identity, who I think I am. That and the identity of Nita as a multiple being is produced in a bottom-up way, what I experience and how I experience it. But it also is produced from a top-down way. And that top-down recognizes that by arriving at an identity that identity has a purpose. And I might ask myself what that purpose is. One level of purpose is with me in terms of what I'm doing is I'm looking at the world. My job is to look at the world and to know what's going on from an experiential point of view. Not that I don't do plenty of reading. I absolutely do. I'm interested in the brain, how it arrives at thinking. I'm interested in what thinking is. I'm interested in how thinking produces movement and how movement produces thinking. But for me, because I'm a practitioner as well as a theorist, because I'm based in practice, it has to hold true in its felt and experienced sense. But experience is a tricky thing. And that's maybe what we are, the kernel of what I'm talking about here. The trickiness of it is that experience will determine how the mind, how that identity, Nita, forms beliefs, what it believes. Experience can derive beliefs, but it can't derive beliefs that identity doesn't hold. Can't hold. So things are identity, or else identity has to change. And for most of the world, and this is true for, yeah, most of the world is really interested in producing stability so that cultures can exist. If we're all living in fluid states of rethinking what a human is, then maybe commerce won't happen. And if commerce doesn't happen, oh my, we're really have an issue. So understanding that, and I'm going to give you the logical levels, and these are, and I'm talking about these today because the logical levels are important because they speak to how people arrive at their understanding and experience. And it also speaks to how people can produce change. So, as I said, we can start at identity. And higher than identity is the notion that there's more than us in the world. That there's more, that we are not the ultimate, that somehow there's more. And that more is greater than our identity. And that sense that we all have that there is more. There's more here than meets the eye, so to speak. We can say, okay, from that I arrive, I appear. There is Nita, this being. And there is something happening that Nita is here. And so I ask myself, what is it? What's my purpose? What's the meaning? What is it that Nita is here to do? I could ask myself that question. And from that, I get an identity. An identity is produced. And from identity, we derive beliefs. What can that identity believe? So for me, I believe that I need to question a lot, constant questioning. What is here? What is this? and and practices. And part of my practice with the particular identity I have is to not always define things, but to just as much undefine things. So rather than naming things, unnaming things, so that I can start to view the relationships. Because given how I think relationships are important, relationships are all there is. So when I unname Nita, then I have to ask again. So that's a belief. And it also has values. My identity produces values, and the values are, and beliefs and values we can look at on the same level, so to speak. A level that is just below or just produced by identity. And that level has values, and say my values are, if I look again, if I unname, when I unname, I return things to a free state. I release my control. I let go. And then I have to look again. So in some ways, naming is like trapping things, categorizing things. So the value there for me is it's important for me to let things show me what they are rather than me name them and make them what they are. That I have to, the value is that there's a relationship there. What I can know, what is given to me to know. Now, I happen to have an identity that holds that I get that communication is what relations do. They communicate. And because relations communicate, because we live in a world of communication, how we hold a book in our hand is an act of communication. Not to just somebody watching us hold that book, but to the book itself. And to, so hand to book, single being to book, I can go on. The relations are ceaseless. So that sense is that when communication, if I pay attention to relations, I'm also paying attention to communication. And I hold another belief. And that belief is that Nita learns really well. Nita rethinks really easily. Nita is open to be spoken to. That's a really powerful belief. And so from that belief, what do I get? I get capabilities in a body that lives ready to listen. So one of my capabilities is I really study bodies and their availability to be moved, to be communicated with. That's one of my really profound interests. I'm talking about myself because I'm really talking about you. I hope you know this. Because you also have identities. You also have beliefs and values. You also, they end up developing and defining your capacities and what you attend to, how you attend, what you think is important to attend to. Because what you think is important, and that's on the level of values and beliefs, that's going to form your embodiment. So part of the job when I'm out there training dancers, part of my job is to notice how available people's bodies are for communication. And so to me, part of the most important points about contact improvisation is, do we have communication here? That dance skill. Is there communication happening, and on what level is the communication happening? Because one of the things, of course, having that capacity has done has been to teach me different levels of communication, different ways communication happens in embodied ways. And those are capabilities. Capabilities have capacities. So I'm constantly asking, is this the capacity? Can this capacity change? How does it change? What are the what allows this to happen? And then my capacities create behaviors. I mean, my abilities create behaviors. There's certain things I do that are different than, say, somebody else. So when I communicate, my behaviors are to recognize, think it again. My behaviors are to be response able. So I really attend in ways that are responsive. I can't tell you how many times people say to me in teaching, you pay such strong attention, that kind of thing. But that's a capacity I have developed and built because of what it does and because of how available communication can be. And I also believe, really powerfully, that Nita doesn't have it all. She doesn't know it all. It's not all coming from me. So I have, since early contact days, found myself walking up to somebody, seeing that something that I see the communication or whatever it is that isn't happening. And I have no idea what I'm going to say. And I open my mouth and out fall all of these words. And I swear to God, I'm being taught. The words are not just derived by Nita. And that has been, when that first started to happen, it was shocking to me. Oh my God, I just learned something. So the multiple being that I always also am lives on many scales of being. So that's a belief too. I hold myself available. That's part of my belief that ends up in the capacity to not know what I'm going to say and to be taught by whatever comes out, to learn, to not know ahead, but to know in the moment, that the moment the event of the moment will teach me. And that is a co-created practice. That's a practice in which it's, I may be the teacher, but I'm also the student. And then so then that produces certain behaviors of recognizing, of being responsive and response able. And those behaviors happen in lots and lots of places. So the bottom level of all of this is the environment where we are. And I'm going to take that going back up the scale. Environments. We do certain behaviors in certain environments. We bring certain kinds of embodiments to certain environments. So, am I the same person everywhere? Absolutely not. The environment where I am will change how I am. Why? Because I live in a much more fluid body. I'm touched. I am responsive. I have the capacities to be moved and to notice that movement, to notice how change is happening. Really important. How's it happening right now? You know, if you were to take a moment, how is change happening in you right now? Who are you in this moment? How is that environment shaping what you can know, how you can respond, your capabilities, and what are your capabilities that you're bringing to that place? And for me, the question is, what are the capabilities of being responsive? And for me, I hold also a really high value in care. Care is a very high value for me. So when I'm in an environment, one of the things I might be noticing about Nita as she's changing in an environment is care. How am I caring? What is needed in this environment is derived from an identity I have that I can bring what is needed to some degree, not to the whole thing, but that I have a capacity. So if I walk into in my mind's eye, I'm imagining walking into a government building, right? And as I walk in, what is needed? Immediately, care is needed. And so I go about caring about cement, about brick, about turnstiles, you know, people. And I don't have to be elaborate in that care. It doesn't have to be demonstrative. It has to be produced and define my behavior. So our behaviors are constantly formed from what's below and what's above in that logical level of our thinking, right? The various levels of Nita are constantly in communication with each other, in other words, defining, changing. And so the level of my behaviors is my behaviors will produce my capacities. What I attend to, what I do, will define what I can do. Now we're working up these logical levels. And if I'm interested in embodied states and communication, the more I live in relations physically in every environment, the more I flex this physical form that I am. It's mindishness, it's bodyishness as I am a mind. It's mindishness as I am a body. Because my body touches every environment I touch. I don't leave things untouched. That's part of my practice. I like to touch. I believe in touch. I think touch brings things alive. I think attention touches. That's in my values and beliefs, right? And I hold touching as valuable because it brings things to life. Babies that don't get touched don't thrive. Babies that don't have attention don't thrive. Why? Because attention touches. That's my belief. So when I walk into that government building that needs care, what does it need? It needs touch. I can get bigger. I do those kinds of things. Not always, imperfectly, but when I do, the doing of it increases my capacity to do it, defines the capability. The more I do it in more different kinds of places, the more I have those capabilities. So what you care about, your behaviors absolutely are making you. If you eat, if you eat candy all the time, don't be surprised if your teeth fall apart, right? Especially if you don't brush your teeth. Your behaviors are going to produce results. They're going to define your capacity to eat, your to have tea with teeth rather than with gums. Having just lost a tooth in Europe, I'm particular. Yeah, lost a tooth. I have to get another. Oh my, another implant. As I get older, becoming bionic woman here. These. Um, let's see. So then our capacities define our beliefs. So because touching the world produces results, I end up with beliefs. So I end up with the belief that where I go, I can make things better. That's what I pay attention to. One of the things I might pay attention to. What is needed here? Can I make things, can I bring what is needed? And that means not in big demonstrative ways, but in ways that presence makes things better. What does presence do? I'm very interested in presence, as you all know. So I'm interested in what can presence do? How does presence shape our communication? It's a curiosity. So one of my behaviors is to constantly be curious. It's an attentional behavior that comes from my capacity to be curious. My capacity to let things be undefined, so I have to ask again. That comes, and the fact that curiosity produces results, produces more curiosity. I mean, it's what it does. And one of the results of curiosity is to recognize that I'm constantly being co-created. That what gets produced is not just all about Nita. And that part of the action of care is to recognize that others are in what I do. Others are present, they shape me. They produce. The words I'm saying are not just Nita. They're produced in part by you being here. I would not be saying these words if you were not here. We're doing this together. And to recognize how important that is. Gretchen Dunn, you are so important in my life. You and your curiosity and your presence, so wonderful. It just makes my world so much larger. And I feel you. I feel your presence, your interest, your uh, willingness to change and be changed, to not stay the same. Yeah, yeah, so great. Anyway, so that defines my beliefs, and my beliefs produce an identity. So whether you're looking at this whole thing from the bottom up or the top down really doesn't matter. You're going to end up noticing that there's that one thing begets the other, and that we have so many capacities to change, places where we can redefine, rethink, ask again, come up with a new identity. Now, I can look at all this and go, oh my God, my behaviors are going to produce. I can look at this as being problematic, that I can't get out of the trap of one thing changing another. Or I can look at it as something that is exciting and thrilling, and that, oh my God, there is so much that can happen here. I can be a different person by shifting something on any one of these levels, and everything's going to be shifted. I make a tiny shift in my environment and everything shifts. I make a tiny shift in my belief and everything shifts. I believe I can, big shift from I believe I can't. So small steps can produce big change. And really believing in the small steps. The small step is not just going to change that one level of being. It will produce results, especially if you do one small step after another. And then boom, you've got something different. Now, sometimes it's hard for us to do those things, to produce change. And then you might start looking up and down this scale of being, these logical levels. What's fixed? What am I unwilling to change? Do I have an identity that is stuck with something? So I believe very strongly in play, and that it's really valuable to play with a lot of these things, with going through them again: environment, behaviors, capabilities, beliefs and values, identity, and purpose. If you haven't thought on the level of life purpose, and it doesn't have to be just a single purpose, of course, but if you don't go above identity to ask, What is it that I'm doing that is informed by that which is greater than I am, that is larger than me, that which I can't know? That might be an interesting question to ask yourself, because it may result in how you are embodying your relations in the world, how you dance. Now, I could hold this same conversation. I've been going on and on. This is way too long. I haven't given you guys any time to talk. Oh my God, you should stop me. But we could do this in a completely different way. We can talk in a completely different way um, on um, on the same subject. And maybe I will on the same subject in a completely different way, on a completely different scale of thinking. So I'm going to stop and invite you all to talk. Turn it over to you.
Thank you. I was really struck by something you said early on, naming and renaming things. Trapping and fixing things, fixing in the sense of immobility. And I've lived a long time, and I've had to change a whole lot of things in my life. And I see other people having difficulties making changes or making the wrong changes and stuff like that. And it struck me that the idea of naming and renaming I guess they call it reframing.
Uh-huh. Right. Uh-huh.
Could you say that too?
Yeah.
The like really most helpful um in accommodating and what in accommodating to what you can now do and what you need to leave behind you.
Uh-huh.
For example, I can't drive at night anymore, so I've had that's out. But uh, so how so the idea of naming and renaming for me was enormously powerful. And I in my when I worked, I worked with psychiatric patients, and uh again it was often about reframing and what is this and stuff like that. So I thank you for reminding me and punching that again.
Yeah, and it really matters if you rename something. It really matters because you're going to live it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And too often without renaming, I think things happen like you get rolled over by some heavy piece of road equipment. And yeah, yeah, that's
So
what
how are you renaming who you are as one who does not drive at night?
well, I've had to I'm excuse me. I'm not a person that reaches out very much, very easily,
Uh-huh.
but now I have to.
So I want you to notice what you just said. Um, well, I've had to do such and such. Um, and that already tells you and tells me that you're being forced to do this thing. And that shapes how you think about it,
Yeah, but
because
it's
nobody likes to be forced. So there's other language you maybe might want to consider.
indeed, indeed. And there a tremendous I was always going to things alone. I'm not going to things alone anymore. So that's a real benefit. And I'm doing more things because of this.
Yeah.
So I think the way the way I phrased it um, had to do with the negativity, which I
Yes, and that's exactly what I mean, you're giving us a case in point. The case in point is that have to speaks to, it will speak to your behavior.
Mhm, mhm.
It will speak to your capacities. It will define your capacities.
Yeah,
It will define where you go and what you do, your places, your environments. But
absolutely.
it will also define your beliefs. It itself comes from a belief. You got to change the belief. And
I
that
have
belief defines who you think you are. So you have to change who you think. I thank you for this opportunity to just show the levels and scales
yeah.
on which change can happen.
I have the belief that people don't like me.
Wow. Wow.
Well, yeah, which
That's
yeah.
not a belief you want to hold, is it?
No, no, it's not.
Right. It doesn't produce, because what's the embodiment of somebody that believes that they are not liked? How do they meet somebody?
And
The energy pulls back.
yeah,
You
and
can't communicate the way you really can.
and over again I get communicated to that that's simply not true.
Right. So now
People like
you need to take it to the physical level and change your embodiment.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's got to end up in the body ultimately, guys. If it doesn't end up in the body, in how you live as a physical being, in a way that you feel the shift, then it's only happening here, but it hasn't landed.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's another belief that's stopping it from becoming body. So if it doesn't become embodied, figure out the other belief that's
Mhm.
stopping it from being body, because it wants to be a body, right? It wants to be held holy.
How do you spell that?
WHOLLY.
Okay. It could be HOLY.
You're right. Right. So anybody else? What are you coming to think? What's this day done to you? Is this interesting to you?
I can share.
Yeah.
I'm just noticing like how amazing this is. Like I feel like when I joined the meeting and now I'm like I feel like I'm full of life. I'm like energized, I'm inspired. I wrote like 3 pages of notes. It just feels so good to be together and especially when I kind of noticed that when you were talking about the environment and how like this being together here on Zoom somehow like came into this environment of this. I'm in my like childhood bedroom in Michigan right now. So it's like amazing to like it's all the feelings and everything. And it's just like amazing to be able to bring like this part of my life, all of you like here. And yeah, so thank you. It's so great.
Right,
Yeah. And
right.
maybe also something I was thinking about was like, wow, the only time I like coming on Zoom is when it's with Nita. It's like the only Zoom meeting where I'm like, this is so good. Like I'll be on Zoom for hours. And I think it's something to do with like it's not just the eyes like you're talking about. It's like we're all bringing our full body to this. It's not just
Yeah.
like this face thing. And so maybe that's part of it too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
thanks.
You're welcome. I'm thinking that I need to tell you guys this model. It's a model that I've been working with. Is the model is called Logical Levels, and it's by Robert Dilts. He produced it years ago, and it's now you can find it in lots and lots of different um, psychological practices use it, coaching practices use it, because it's so right on, right? But it is he developed it in relations to neurolinguistic programming. And as you know, I'm a master practitioner of NLP, so watch out. No, have guns, can travel. That's the uh, man. When I think that was Maverick, a TV show way back when, way back when. So funny.
I, I can share something.
Yeah,
I'm nine.
Rebecca.
Yeah, hello. I'm released from the library. I'm in the car, so I can speak. um, um, Today, I've been practicing this morning deep listening by Pauline Oliveros. Quite a
Uh-huh.
few exercises for a project I'm doing. And actually, as you started speaking, Nita was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly when I was experiencing the sound of my thoughts as I was listening to the sounds outside. And the sounds of my thoughts were so like heavy. And yeah, so when you were speaking about the thoughts as being physical, I connected straight away to this that Pauline Oliveros talk about and that I experienced. And wow, it's making a lot of sense on how we observe and attend to things, how everything really connects through the gravity field. And this is also something I'm writing and kind of reflecting upon now after quite a few practices outdoors. Is like the gravity and weight of everything. And so that is a real big channel of communication that
Great.
goes beyond all the logical, no? And but then it can also be explored through the logical mind. But then there's that's where the communication can happen on different languages, different beings, and also different mergings, becoming one with different beings because we find different points of resonance. So just a
Yeah.
reflection.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful, Rebecca. Where did you have access to Pauline Oliveras's teaching?
Um, well, I followed some courses in the past with John Petter, but I'm doing a residency now, a project I'm doing about silence that I write and with a musician, and she gifted me the book of Pauline Oliveros, Deep
Oh,
Listening.
oh, okay.
So I was going
You're
through the
working
book
with the
again today, but
you yeah.
working with the book, but I did study with some practitioners in the past and worked with some musicians that were really influenced by her work. So
Cool.
it's like quite a few years. She's like kind of a reference that I don't know so well, but that I
Yeah.
keep referring to.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think today was the first day I realized how the deep listening was bringing back to me a deeper listening. It was not just about outside sound, but how so much the filters, no? I
Right.
mean, it reminded me how we filter everything, and that is
Mm.
always the coming together that
Yes,
makes
yes, yes,
the encounters, no, of information. Yeah.
yes. Wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, great. Well, we're way over time. I am sorry that I talked so long that we didn't get to talk, but I hope it was valuable. George, did you want to say anything? I want to give you an opportunity to speak if you want before we leave.
Uh, nah, just thank you. I also have like a very jumbled pages of notes. Um,
Well,
and I'm
I kind
feeling,
of
yeah,
spoke in a
excited.
jumbled way.
Yeah, but yeah, um, losing bits of my notebook. Yeah, the one thing I want to say, I was really like, as like a facilitator, one of the places I get really stuck is like that moment of like seeing something that I want to say something about, but not knowing what to say, and then stopping myself and not saying anything. Or like, yeah, like so like, yeah, imagining that something will come, or that I don't need to know what I'm gonna say.
And that you are more than a single being,
Yeah, totally. It was really like
or that there's so many voices that can speak, and you don't have to choose the voice before you start.
totally. Yeah, that feels, I don't know, just really, yeah, exciting.
Yeah, I
Um,
hope you guys forgive me for having spent so much time talking about myself, but I can be a model that you play with, and that was my hope, was that, you know, I say this is the way I do it, and you find your own. You know.
totally. Thank you.
Yeah, great, George. Okay, until the next time. I think I have one in August coming up, Breaking Bread. Um, let me look really briefly at my calendar here. Um, and oh, I'm not going to be able to. No, I'm not going to be able to see on this calendar. It'll show up in the newsletter, which, because I'm home, I'll be able to get out early August. And if there's a Breaking Bread, it'll be in that. Thank you, everyone. Enjoyed being with you.